Hello, friends. Wow, it is getting interesting in the world right now. And I just wanted to throw my 2 pence worth in, my deluded perspective on life and everything. Uh, and yeah, for whatever that's worth, I think it has value. So I'm seeing a lot of shouting and disagreement and polarizing ideas. I got involved in it. Um, I expressed some stuff from a place of fear on social media, and I got a lot of support and I got a lot of rejection, which is interesting. Um, and some questions started coming up for me around polarization and around how this idea of divide and conquer, and and we're seeing a lot of that, or I'm seeing a lot of this dividing going on between different racial groups, and we've had it for a long time, different racial groups, gender, and now over current events and around the solution to current events. Um, and for me, it's become very clear that I don't want to play that game of taking a side and holding a perspective, holding one way is right and another way is wrong completely. When I feel into my body around when I do that, I feel rigidity. I feel stuck. I feel tense. I feel resistant and defended. And separated from my fellow human beings. So I guess I wanted to share some practical considerations around how to navigate polarizing experiences or polarizing perspectives. For me, this might sound a bit strange, might sound a bit weird, and I'm okay with being weird. When I consider how part of me feels around the lockdown and the tracking apps and all of the stuff that's being spoken about in the mainstream media and the alternative media around the potentials of what that's going to look like. When I look at what that represents to me, a very powerful allegory would be George Orwell's 1984. Now, if you haven't read that book, and the movie's pretty good too, highly recommend it. And yeah, so I've remembering that book and reflecting back on that book. There's a statement towards the end as the antagonist says to our hero, if you want to imagine the future, if you want to, here it is, if you want to vision the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. That's a pretty grim imagining. That's a pretty grim imagining, and it's very triggering for me. And part of me wants to resist that so much that I will fight with friends over ideas that I believe will lead towards that. And in that fight, I'm divided, we're divided, humanity's divided. Because I'm coming from a place of fear, resistance, not accepting that as a potential. And there's a saying that I've heard a lot, and it's, for me in this moment, certainly seems like a truism, and that is, what you resist persists. And I see myself and I see some friends very sincerely posting stuff on Facebook about, like, look what's going on, look what this represents to me, this is how I see things, and this is how these people see things, and a lot of this stuff is diametrically opposed to the mainstream narrative. And I think that's cool, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that people are doing that. My invitation is, how can we do that in a way that doesn't create divisiveness and polarization? How can we do that in a way that is respectful to our other fellow human beings who don't agree and don't want to think about this stuff and don't want to reflect on it? Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, I don't know. I really don't know. But some of the language that gets used in some of this stuff is very demeaning towards people that don't agree with it or don't want to research this stuff for themselves. And I think for me, when I'm being like that, it's because of my fear. It's because of my fear of the outcome of the boot stamping on the human face. I'm afraid of that, so I will attack in order not to experience that. So for me, to find balance and to find empathy and compassion, I have to be willing to explore both sides of the coin. In politics, that would look like exploring the far left and the far right, considering both polarities and seeing that, yes, there's a light and a shadow side to the left. There's a light and a shadow side to the right. And being willing to just consider all the spectrum of experience, all the spectrum of emotions, all the spectrum of possibilities, without giving my ass away to any of it, without resisting any of it, and without attaching to any of it. But being open to all of it. One practical consideration in this would be to explore the worst case scenario. For me, it's encapsulated in this quote of the boot stamping on a human face forever. when I feel that and I feel into it, and I feel the part of me that is resistant to that, that is fearful of that, and I take that part of me and I put it in that situation and I experience it and I allow my whole being, my whole sensation, my whole mind, my heart to experience that potentiality. I begin to diffuse my experience. Your experience might be different, but for me, it begins to diffuse the charge and the resistance to that. Hello, cat. Hello, you beautiful thing. Yeah, there you go. Excuse me. And accepting that that could happen, accepting that and making my peace with it. Making my peace with the thing that I fear the most, the worst case scenario, and marinating in that. And it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one time. But the more I'm able to go there and the more I'm able to explore it and consider it, it's like the further you go to one side of the coin, exploring and accepting and considering, the more able I am to find my center. And the other side of the coin, both sides of that coin, and then I'm able to have a choice on the spectrum of emotions and the spectrum of experiences that coin represents. And I'm able to find my center, not some arbitrarily assigned consensus center, my center. I've explored it, I've seen it, I've felt it. And now I'm choosing where I want to be on there based on my having expanded into all areas as much as I'm able or willing to do in the moment. As I'm able to do that, as I'm willing to do that, there's a confidence that comes with that. And there's a compassion that inherently emerges from that. We don't have to develop compassion. We don't have to do some kind of, generating compassion and loving kindness, because it arises naturally as a spontaneous expression of having explored the fears that we all experience in the spectrum of emotions around a certain, whatever subject it might be. And in that, I am able to empathize with the fears of other people because I've been there and I've experienced what they're afraid of. And I'm able to allow them to be afraid and to not resist them because my idea and my belief might be different. My experience, to the degree that I am willing and able to do that and hear somebody else and listen and receive their fear and not take it on, not attach to it, not resist it, but feel it and understand it and experience it and empathize with it. It's my experience that has the potential to create an opening that wasn't there before and a connection that wasn't there before. And there's power in that. There's power in the confidence and the empathy that the things that we're afraid of, the institutions, the billionaires and the whatever, the technologies But they don't have that. They don't have that. They need to use coercion and fear to bring about their agendas. Video died for some reason, either memory or possibly overheating. We'll try again. So, where was I? My experience is that confidence is contagious. And if we want to create a change in the world, we have to live by example and we have to model what it is we want to see. In my opinion, in my deluded opinion. So let's give people a better example and of what we want to see, of what we want to experience in life. Let's give people something to aspire to. And that confidence, that if it's to, for me, one practical tool to develop that confidence is what I've said. Explore the possibilities, explore the worst case scenarios, explore the things you resist. So notice when something comes up that you feel a charge around, you feel triggered by, you feel resistant to, you feel angered by, some heat in the body, and get curious about it. Get curious about, what does this represent to me? What am I resisting here? What do I not want to experience? And choose to go there. Choose to experience it. And now how you do that is, how you do that can be literally going into a place that brings those emotions up. You can do it with your mind. And to feel, to get out of the head and get into the heart and to feel what that feels like when you consider it, when you contemplate it, when you visualize it, or when you put yourself in that environment. So, yeah, I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that perspective because I see some very sincere people, and I, myself included, I am very prone to this at times. Part of me is to falling for this divisive, polarizing trick that the universe plays on us. It's nobody's fault. It's the universe that plays it. It's how life works. It's just the yin and the yang of existence. You know, it's like, let's not point fingers and say it's somebody's fault. It's kind of the beauty of the dream, right? If we're in a dream, there is certain principles that exist in that dream, and this is one of them. The very wise Indians call it Maya, and they personify Maya as the goddess of delusion or the architect of fear. And this is beautiful, you know. It's a principle, and it's what allows us to have the experience of all the spectrums of emotion, because we've forgotten that we are creating it. We are creating all of them. And Maya is the very principle by which we forget that we are the creators of our life and our reality. So there's nobody to blame. There's nobody to blame, in my opinion. But we can stop falling for the trick. We can stop falling for the fight between night and day, good and bad, good and evil, we can stop falling for it. And by exploring both to their fullest and then finding us in the center with the potential to travel anywhere on the spectrum. So yeah, there's some practical considerations. If you're finding yourself polarized, resisting, trying to convince people of your perspective and fighting, all of that is coming from within you. The fight is in you already, and it's just being expressed. So if you're interested in exploring your own experience and what things represent to you, then there's some practical considerations. Thank you, friends. Appreciate you, and have a great day.